Hello everyone, welcome to my tutorial. Today's tutorial I'm going to talk about Spring JDBC. So we all know that JDBC stands for Java Database Connectivity, and this tells that how our application is going to connect to the database. In this case we are going to use the MySQL database, but the form of connectivity is going to be changed to Spring JDBC. So Spring JDBC comes along with different packages, and at the core we have the core functionalities package, and that includes the JDBC template, simple JDBC insert, and some other important classes. And with the core packages, we are going to use these template, JDBC template, quite often or quite frequently, because this template we are going to use for insert, update, and some other jobs. Then we have the data source. It's a utility class to access the data source. And by the word data source, we mean that how we are going to connect to the database. Okay, so the data source means the database. And this deals with this accessing the data source. And then we have the object, a package that relates to the object. And for the object, it maps query results between columns and properties of business object. Okay, so we mean that the JPA is a ORM, or object relational mapping technology or process, but the JDBC also does some object, because whenever we are going to access the database and get the result set out of it, then we need to map the results to the object for our using in the application. Okay, so this object package is actually giving us that functionality. And then support, that relates to some support classes. Then we have let's talk about the JDBC template in some more detail. Basic template to do the following: creating and closing connections, executing statements, and iterating over result set. And we know that these are the most important things that we need to do in order to do any kind of database CRUD operations. Okay, so creating and closing the connections, then executing a statement, and then iterating over the result set. Let's take an example on how the JDBC template works. So here you can see that we have the query, string query equals select star from user, where username equals this and password equals this. All right, so that's a string, and the query is embedded within the string, right? And then we are expecting a user object returned from JDBC template.query for object method. And you can see that in the query for object method, we have passed on the query that we have written, and then we are using a new user row mapper. So the user row mapper is a class defined by myself, but it extends to something, and I'll be discussing about that later on. But what it is doing is it's a custom mapper. The user row mapper is a custom mapper that relates, or that corresponds the result set returned from the database query to the Java object user. Okay, and then in the next statement, you can see that we have public int add user. So here I'm adding a user, and then again I'm using the JDBC template and calling its update method. Okay. Now let's talk about the mapping object, row mapper interface to map query results to Java object. Okay, example. So in this case, in the following example, you can see that I have created a new class, user row mapper, but it extends to row mapper. Okay, and what the row mapper is doing, you can see following that I have created a user object, and within the user object I have set some parameters, and using the set methods, and what I'm setting is basically what I'm getting from the result set. Okay, so rs.getLong user ID, it is returned as a result set from the database, and that is what I'm setting in the user set method, and I'm formulating the total user, and then I am returning that. So that's all we are going to use many of these JDBC template methods in our actual example, and we'll see that how to use it. Okay, but again, the Spring JDBC template is a way of connecting our Spring application um, with the Java objects to the database, and this is one of the this is based on the JDBC architecture, and very useful as well. Okay, so that's all for today. Thank you.